It's a phone call. I'm sorry. So, guys, actually, okay, guys. So this is how the academicians also actually design the course based on the objectives that are to be realized by a group of learners, right? Etc. And then, so this particular lesson, what we are going to discuss is the language teaching objectives. We'll discuss about the issues that arise out of teaching a non-native language in a multilingual country like ours, where there are like diverse background students, not a homogeneous group of students are available, right? So, and then and not only that, a few of them will have different purposes to and few different purposes, right? So based on these purposes, and then we will set the target levels in the language teaching classrooms. So as we all understand, one cap will not fit all the heads. In a similar way, only there is no standardized format, standardized methodology for everybody, for all the levels of learners. We will have actually different. It is the teacher in the classroom should be able to understand the objectives that are to be realized at the end of the class, and based on that she needs to design her methodology. So that's how we have to that is what we have to understand. And in this emerging, let us look into the background of our Indian context, right? In the emerging scene of India, a large number of rural people, rural youth they are moving to cities in search of better livelihood, isn't it not? And then these youngsters are aspiring to get a good salaried jobs, and then both in private and the public sector. So what is important for these kind of job seekers is that proficiency in English has become a prerequisite condition for the eligible candidates, right? For the candidates who are applying for jobs. So what is a prerequisite thing is that proficiency in English language is very, very important actually. So, and then these youth will desperately be looking for the avenues where they can be helped to, practice, learn speaking skills, right? And then in this particular scenario, there are many spoken English institutes which cropped up or which mushroomed in every street corner, offering them a prospective, they promise them that they would be acquiring a lot of proficiency, and then they will have the ability by the end of their course. All the participants will become very proficient in this language. So, and that, but sometimes sometimes these kind of institutes cater, and then they keep up their promises, but sometimes, most of the time, they fail. So it depends, right? It is all it depends on the interest of the learner also, of course. So, however, these very rarely delivered the goods, and the youth are left with high and dry, not able to not able to achieve their objectives, purposes also. Whatever they aspire for, they would not be able to understand. And then, so this is what we have understood in our. Actually, I'm going to share PPT for all of you based on this topic, that is language teaching objective, 3rd unit, 9th lesson I'm discussing. So I'll just share the PPT for you guys.
And 3rd unit, 9th unit. 3rd block, 9th unit. Huh?
Yeah, 3rd block, 9th unit, yes.
మీ దగ్గర ప్రెస్ చేస్తున్నా.
Yeah. 1 second. Just let me.
Language teaching objectives.
Yeah. Yeah, actually, yeah, I'm trying to share the PPT that I have made. 1 second, just let me. So, okay, this is the one. Yeah, Unit 9 language teaching objectives. And then see what I have, this is what are the things that we need to understand before going into the details of the lesson. Different learner groups will require English for varied purposes. That's what I have told you before, that every individual got their own, desire or interest for pursuing the course, right? Isn't it? Different learner groups will require English for varied purpose. For example, I'll just give you a small example. Like, those who are planning to go abroad, they will join TOEFL or GRE courses, institutes where they are trained on those lines, right? So that is how. And then some of them who are like applying for the government jobs, they actually join that competitive um, competitive courses which are offered by some of the institutes in in the city. Then they all join that course. So what is the basic idea of, for me telling you is that, so the people who want to go abroad, their curriculum, their material will be different, and then their methodology is different. And then those people who are aspiring to get a government job, for them, the curriculum and the modules and then the methodology is all different. So different learning groups are require different purposes. Therefore, target levels will also be different. So what is the target level? What is that? Are you do you want to pass the examination? Do you want to get a distinction so that you can actually get a seat, free seat for? So that's how target levels are. Levels will be different, and then no method can be. Yeah, as I told you that one cap doesn't cannot fit everybody's head. In the same way, no method can be imposed or prescribed on particular learning situation. Okay, so no one kind of method is imposed or prescribed on a particular learning situation. So it is not that we have to be very dynamic in teaching. Sometimes the students what we get is all from different backgrounds, and also like they have the different background knowledge of the language and socioeconomic situations. So there are based on those kind of, we cannot actually have a group of students who have got the same you know cognitive levels, right? So different children will come, different learners, different participants will come with different cognitive levels, right? We have to, the teacher has to be so meticulous in segregating them into groups, so wherein she can actually, customize according to their needs. That's how no method can be imposed. And of course, there is no standard format that this is how English should be taught in a particular situation, right? But you all agree with me, I believe. So, this one. Yeah. See, for this one, there is one. Kumari Veduvelu has actually designed 3 parameters for the language pedagogy. Where I mean, in the language settings, in an instructional setting, this Kumar Veduvelu in his book called Beyond Methods. So you understand by the phrase itself, beyond methods. Methods means Like you understand that one. Beyond methods, he has actually designed, he has defined three parameters, that is practicality, particularity, and then possibilities there. So we will understand what is this practicality. Practicality requires any language pedagogy to be relevant to a particular group of teachers, teaching in a particular group of learners, pursuing a particular set of goals within a particular instructional context, right? So what is this what is this particular? So there is, it has to be customized according to the group of learners you get, and not only that, in a particular context also. Within a particular instructional context, you just have to design the curriculum according to the learners. So that's how we have to understand. So social cultural milieu. What is this milieu? Is a person's social environment. So based on this one, the particularity requires any language pedagogy to be relevant to a group of a particular group. Relevant in the sense they need to, relate, understand. Isn't it? Connect to what we are teaching to them, right? Without the connection, we will not understand. So, and then the target levels, different target levels for different sections of learners. Okay, so different target levels for the different sections of the learners. I'll just try to explain this one. What do you mean by this different target levels for different sections of learners? What is this? So, for example, the primary level is one section, and then the secondary level is another section, and higher secondary is another section of the learners, right? Isn't it not? So what is the target levels of this one? Is like this particular primary section. What they have to understand is that they have to understand the things in the what are the names of the naming things, and then what is basically how to make a small simple sentence, like, isn't it not? For example, this is an apple, this is a car, like that. You have to, this is the target levels of for that section of the learners, right? Isn't it not? And when you go to the higher secondary levels, high school level, then they should be able to understand what is a compound complex sentence is, active and passive voice, how to convert active, and what is an active voice, what is a passive voice, and the different types of the verb forms, present form, past form, and past participle form. All these things they should be able to understand. This is the target level, setting a target levels for the different sections of the learners. That is how you just cannot, basically give a secondary level student a complex compound sentence and then ask him what type of sentence is this one. They might not be able to do that, right? So it is like that actually. There are, so coming to the next point, there are two aspects of this: levels of language and levels of communication. So levels of language and levels of communication. So any learner, like for example, we understand, for example, when you consider rural school and an urban school, you will understand what is the levels of language for them, and then the levels of communication for this kind of schools in different localities like urban and the rural areas. Because in the urban areas, the students are fortunate enough that they are exposed to this particular language very much. Right? Their exposure is to a larger extent. But whereas coming to the rural students, rural learners, the exposure for they are disadvantaged. They are like they are deprived. Maybe that word is appropriate. They have less opportunities. Otherwise, they have less opportunities for the exposure to expose themselves for this to this target language. Is it not? So this is how there's a two levels of two aspects of this. When you are setting a target levels, this is what we need to keep it in our idea: levels of language and the levels of communication. So that is another one. And then when we set target levels for individual skills that may be required for certain functions, like so, and not only this, when we are designing what is the teaching objectives, we have to keep the when we are designing the materials or the curriculum, or when the This is what they keep it in the mind. What is this course all for? I mean, is this only for certain functions like academic or functional or social? So based on this academic, functional, and social also, the curriculum would be designed. That means materials would be designed. That is another thing. So, for example, I just want to academic levels. Academic is see what is the this one academic when it comes to academic purposes. That means they need to reproduce. They have to comprehend the content and then answer the questions. They need to write the exam so that to what extent the objectives have been realized by this kind of group of learners, isn't it? Functional is also different, and then function and so or social, functional or social, like for example, some there are people who are interested in spoken language, though they are not going to a proper educational settings, but still they like to speak. Okay, because of the multilingual communities in our country, many people have the desire to speak, though they might not be a a student or a learner proper. I mean, going to a proper school or institution, but still they have, the desire to speak in this language. So that kind of functional or social purposes, even the curriculum has to be designed. So that's a different methodology. That's a different approach of the teaching, right? That is how we actually the target levels. We should design the target levels of the language. So, and the next one is determining target levels in the language, which involve identifying. So now coming to the, what is that target levels? So for example, what is the ultimate criteria of any course? Like, whenever you are in an educational setting, you need to, interact with people and interact with the classmates, interact with the, the people around you in the organizations. So what is that and what is the objective of this? When do we, how is it possible to communicate with other people, right? When we know the basic grammar, right? So identifying the basic structures of the English is very, very important in order to be, grammatically correct. I mean, so that the listener can comprehend what we are saying. So we need to be, you know, every individual should understand the basic structures of the language. So that actually helps them to speak uh, speak properly, make them comprehend by the other person, right? To whomever we are speaking. That's one thing. And example, a primary level student will be able to use. So the primary level student will be able to use very basic structures like present and present continuous and simple past tense sentences, right? This is one. This is another one. And then, coming to this one, exposure to the, and what happens is that exposure to a particular text over a period of over a period of 5 years, would definitely make the learner aware of the most commonly used tense forms. Okay, right? Isn't it not? We will understand what is this present tense, what is past, what is future tense, and all that. So, but sometimes what happens is that at the primary level, there would be ambiguity also. So, like in the sense, like the past tense, the simple present might seem easy enough, but the subject verb agreement poses a problem again. And not only that, the past tense in the English poses a problem because of the irregular forms and all that. And then also there is a, this is how so there is like a little kind of confusion, or maybe using both the present form and the present continuous form creates confusion. Simultaneously using these two kinds of present simple present and present continuous will definitely cause a create a confusion in the learner. So we need to actually yeah, so the teacher has to be able to make them understand, like what is give more examples, and then make them give them a lot of exercises in this particular grammar topics, and then make them efficient in that in the tense forms and all that, so that they can use the appropriate tense form, the appropriate context, right? So that's one thing. And then so what is happening is noticing context in which various forms are used, and why a particular form is used in a particular form in a particular context should help learners to acquire the forms. So actually, over a period of time, when you are over and again, over and over again, if you are reading the English textbooks or the language textbooks, probably will understand what are the various forms that are used and why a particular form is used in a particular context, right? So that's how it helps the learners to acquire the forms. But the reading text is generally not exploited enough by the teachers to highlight the use of the language forms. So what happens here is that they will understand. See, when you actually read a lot about when you are exposed to a particular type of language or particular type of so that will definitely help the learner to understand the forms, right? The structure, the tense forms of the language. But and then what happens is that it should be more intensely used to indicate form use correlationship. What is that? When see, I will just give you one example to be to put it in a very simple way. I'll just tell you something. If you take a Telugu medium student and an English medium student, an English medium student is a far more good and far more better in spoken English. When compared, the one who comes from a medium of instruction, English medium of instruction, he'll be far more better, right? When compared to the student who comes from the regional medium of instruction, right? And then the regional medium of the learner from the regional medium of instruction will be able to score good marks in the grammar when compared to the English. I mean, the one who comes from a English as a medium of instruction. So that is the difference. I have observed this in many of my classes. So that's one thing. So for this kind of problem, what is the ultimate solution for this kind of problem? Because it should be more intensively used to indicate form use correlationship. And then, so form use correlationship, what is that? You have to, whenever the learner is able to understand the simple present and present continuous, simple past, and all these things in the structure way, that we have to facilitate the learner to use those things in a hypothetical, maybe hypothetical situations. Like give them a hypothetical situation where they can be exploiting these tense forms and then learn, isn't it? That's how we can actually do it. One second, guys. Actually, so yeah, and I think, am I going right? Actually, that means you are able to listen to me, right? No response. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am, listening, ma'am.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Yeah, that's good. And now when you
Yes,
speak to
ma'am.
me, I get a lot of, of motivation as if I'm like, otherwise, I feel actually as if I'm talking to the computer screen, just blank.
Yes, it's vice versa. Both we need to have that interaction.
Yes. Your voice, yeah. And then, so coming to this one next, let us go to on the next slide. That is majority of the words found. So what happens is that we have to understand. mm, See, because where is the problem? What is the problem? See, I have been telling you in my previous classes also, though we have been studying this particular language from a very long time from our childhood, but still, when it comes to the public speaking and then speaking in this particular language, we are all tongue-tied, right? So, what is that? What is the basically? What is the drawback? What is the problem that we are facing? That we don't know much of the vocabulary, right? The vocabulary is when you have abundant vocabulary in our the treasure should be abundant. Vocabulary treasure should be abundant so that we can pick a particular, appropriate word for an appropriate. We can use it in a particular context, right? That's how we can use. So, and then the problem here, setting target levels. Um, when say majority of the words, there is a contradictory kind of um forms that runs through the English language text textbooks and then the subject textbooks, right? What happens is, see, when it is always it is quite evident, right? Our our community is multilingual, and then we have very less opportunity to get ourselves exposed to this language. So we only have the opportunity in an English classroom, or when it is our choice, right? When you really inclined to learn the language, then probably the learners, by their self motivation, they can actually learn this language. But otherwise, see, it is always a problem that subconsciously we cannot actually get this language, learn this language. Uh, Conversation, speaking skills, right? So what happens is that, and then though we have been learning this language from our childhood, there is a major drawback of when it comes to speaking skills, right? Why? Because majority of the words found in the English textbooks does not find a place in the subject books. So this is one of the reasons why we actually, don't acquire proficiency in speaking this language. So if the objectives of teaching English is to make it available for functional view, then there should be a greater correlation between English and the other subjects is needed. So there should be a correlation. The subject textbooks, subject optional subjects, and the language books. And a language in the sense that English language books should go. There should be a connectivity between these two uh, books, right? That's how we can. So to set a target level, a close analysis of the language that is required for the use for specific purposes has to be made. So what is the purpose? That is actually very, very important. So what is that we are like? What is the purpose? That why are we learning it? Are you going to work with a multinational company? Are you going to work um, for a, you know, use the language for Kartik communion, like in the society, and that should be very clear for the learner and also uh, for the institute where they have designed the courses for a particular group. So right. In today's globalized environment, with multinational companies, the workplace also depends oral ability. Right? Depend oral ability is that we all see, right? When have you have you ever, I think most of you must have attended interviews, right? So the first thing they will ask you to, the first question they ask, the interviewers will ask you to talk about yourself. Tell me about yourself. So it is not they are interested in knowing you, right? So, what does it matter for them actually? So the purpose, the basic reason behind asking that kind of question is that they will actually look at your, the communication, the confidence levels, and then other things like the language you speak, how good are you, like, in the formal situations and all like that. So that is how. So we will actually, so basically they'll be looking at your oral ability, right? So asking about yourself, or tell me um, what interests you. Can you tell me why are you changing your company and all these things? They're actually looking at your different. They're looking at your at the oral ability of the client. That's how this. So, and this would move from the linguistic aspect of pronunciation, structure, and vocabulary to the social linguistic aspect also, such as levels of formality, informality, and appropriacy. See, basically the three things that we need to understand is that when when we are setting a target level, first of all we need to understand the form. Form is nothing but the structure, the basic grammar, right? The sentence formation, present, all the tense forms, the main three tenses, and then the further, the 12 forms of it. So we need to understand this one. Um, this is the first thing. And then the vocabulary is another target level. That means you need to understand what is the target, um, uh, what is the target of the vocabulary, uh, the list of the vocabulary that a person, a participant has to understand. I mean, it also depends, the ability to speak in a given context will always depends on the amount of the vocabulary that you know, hold in your mind. That's one important thing. So actually, I have given you this one list. Yeah, vocabulary can be limited to most useful and most frequent words. So Michael was published in General Services list of 2,000 words in 1953. These words account for the 87% of any text. So he has actually listed down, and then and and in the and there is one more Hinmarsh. He also listed 4,470 words in 1985. So which actually we come across the list of the words in our academic, social, and functional purposes, functional situations. So this is the list of the words that you actually come. These are the list has been given in these books actually, and then the list different uh, different lists also have been compiled. Not only these two people have compiled the list of the words, but other lists are also been compiled, right? But those lists are for higher academic purposes and academic work list at the university levels. University word list is also there. So this is how the vocabulary is been given much importance and given more priority, um, so that you can actually, you know, uh, communicate with effectiveness. So that's one thing. That is one important thing. So as I'm telling you, the target levels are set or based on the form and the vocabulary. And the third one, the list comes to the third one is that pronunciation is one very, very important thing. And see, I'll just give you one example wherein, like, this, yeah, for example, I'll just give you one word, double up. For example, a non-native speaker actually speaks double up. So what do you mean by it? The native speaker won't understand this word, right? Double up. What do you mean by this double up? So there is communication gap. You won't understand what it is actually developed. So the pronunciation is also very, very important when you are really, like, aspiring to be a prospective employee of an MNC company or being in a multilingual context wherein you have to, interact with so many other speakers, so many other people with the different and varied languages, right? So that is pronunciation also plays a very, very important part in. So this is also one target level. So what is the extent of the pronunciation that needs to be trained to the learner? That is one thing. So one important thing is that most of the time, most of the time the language, the English that we learn in the school does not lead to any language use. Especially in the Indian context, Indian scenario, like whatever the learners learn in the school, the English that they learn, with that, once they go out into the real life situations, they'll be handicapped to use that particular language. So to set target levels, the close analysis of the language that is required for the use for the specific purposes has to be made. Actually, this needs to be given very, very important. Okay, what is that? Actually, what did you all understand this particular line? So whatever the English that we learn at the school level will not, serve the purpose of using the language in our real life situations. So what is that? We need to set a target level, and a close analysis of this particular language has to be made. It is very, very essential. It is required for the use for the specific purposes has to be made. Like for example, I'll just give you some examples. Like in our real life situations, what do we do generally? Like we give information, we take information, we thank people, we apologize people, and then so different things, right? So this is these are the real life situations where we find ourselves in everyday life. So function now, what kind of methodology will come to the rescue us from falling flat on our face in this kind of real life situation? That is, the functional notional syllabus will definitely rescue us from this kind of situation where in a classroom setting the teacher would give design some hypothetical or virtual situations wherein you would need to come up with dialogue part or conversation wherein you will be real. I mean, in a hypothetical way, you will be living in that particular situation, right? That's how this kind of functional notional syllabus will also always help us to emerge successful in using the language in our real life situations. So, and then not only that, we actually have to learn about the formality and informality and also appropriateness. These are one. I think you are. I think you know what is formality and informality. We use formal language with outside our house generally, and then at our workplace with strangers, etc. And then informal language we will be using with our friends, relatives, and then family members, right? So this is how we need to understand. We should be able to figure out. So a polite expression would go a long way in the relationship, right? When you are polite with people, it will go a long way in the relationship. So that's the reason why we need to be very particular. So this is also should be taught besides pronunciation, structure, and vocabulary. These aspects also should be taught: formality and informality and appropriacy. You understand? And then guys, actually, yeah. And to set a target level, a close analysis of the language of The language that is required for the use for specific purposes should be made. Right? Yeah. And then coming to that, in the yeah. Okay, right. Okay. If the aim of the language teaching learning is to be able to use, use English language for workplace and academic communication, interaction in English in the classroom becomes necessary. So what is the aim of learning and teaching language? Is we should be able to use English for workplace and also academic communication. Interaction in English in the classroom becomes very necessary. So this is the criteria for language teaching and learning in the instructional settings. So for this one, in order to achieve this ability, we need to create opportunities for language use in the classroom. So that's what I am telling you, that you need to give them a situation where the learners would be imaginarily living in that situation where they interact with them. So this comes here, simulate, right? Simulate the kind of situation where you can actually help them to learn what if they get the same real life situation. So it's a kind of a practice that they are doing in the classroom. So opportunities should be provided for the learners so that we can simulate their, language and the communication abilities and then things like that. Authentic events and issues of the real world should be discussed. So what is, and one more thing, like, it's basically the English curriculum is mostly, as you all aware, most of your teachers, and then you know very well that the textbooks are all narratives and poems and all that, which we don't use. The tense forms that is being used in this kind of lessons is we don't use them in the real life situations, right? So authentic events and issues in the real world should be discussed in the class. So this particular statement actually, to grab the attention of the learners, it is always better we actually, discuss about the things that are happening in the real world, like contemporary events or situations we need to discuss, wherein they actually they actually get interested in listening and interacting and expressing their ideas, views about things like that. So, and then the common problems faced by the learners are like, many we also face, I mean, irrespective of how much efforts that a teacher puts in and the learner initiates himself to, take interest in learning, and then the teacher initiates herself, keenly to cater the purposes and then realize the objectives, but still there are common problems that we face in our in the learning process, right? So fossilized errors are there, inability of self-monitoring language, inability to activate knowledge about language for communicators. See, what is this? Inability to activate knowledge and about language for communicative use. So activate knowledge and language for the communicative use. The psychological barriers are also, this is the one of the major barrier for any speaker in the language. Okay, that, yeah, they're all, many of us are very, very conscious when it comes to the public speaking, right? When it comes to speaking on the days and on behind from the podium, right? That is actually, we don't, we get tongue-tied and then we very much conscious. So we don't know what to express and how to express the situation. Mine is also like that now, actually. It would have been 25% in a physical class, right? I actually prefer physical classes over this online classes, where you don't get to see the faces of the people, the expressions, the body language. See, when you actually, the body language, we don't connect actually. In physical classes, it's always like, one on one, and then, it's a kind of liveliness there prevails, right? Here it is. I don't know how to express this. Anyways, guys, actually, let me come to another point here. So what is this? The Common European Framework refers to the reference for language differentiates between three levels of the language users as. So actually, there are the Common European European Framework of Reference for language differentiates between three levels. So what is it? What are the? We can categorize the people using this particular language into three categories, guys. One is proficient, one is independent and basic, and the other one is basic, and defines the ability that are expected at the three levels. So they have actually designed the abilities also. What is actually expected of these kind of proficient users, right? So what is this? What can be understood by this? What can be expected from this proficient users of this language? In this also, there are certain categories are there, C2 and C1 is also there. So what is C2 set of people will do is that what is their ability, proficient, language user, what can be expected from them? Yeah, we can understand, they can understand with ease virtually everything heard or read. Okay, they can summarize information from different spoken and written sources also, and reconstructs arguments and accounts into, and they can actually frame the coherent presentations. They give coherent presentations. Express himself or herself spontaneously, and very very fluently and very precisely. This is this is what is expected from the proficient speakers of the language. So they come into one category of the users of the language. And then when it comes to the basic, let us not do the independent, but the basic users. So there are again A2 and A1 are there. They in this particular category of language users also we have two categories. There is a subdivision in this category, that is A2 and A1. So A2 is the first one and A1 is the second one. So A2, what is expected from them? Can understand sentences and frequently used expressions related to areas of most immediate relevance. Very basic personal family information, shopping, local geography, employment, etc. Can communicate in simple and routine tasks requiring a simple and direct exchange of information on familiar and routine matters. So that's how routine matters, general, basic. Whenever you go to a shopping mall or if you want, like if you want to go somewhere, you are asking a stranger to, give some address and all that. So this is how they can make themselves communicative in the basic uses of the language. This is one more thing. And then another one, another important aspect, I think we are also running out of the time. So anyway, guys, actually this is formulating objectives. What is this formulating objectives? The formulating means the primary objectives of the teaching English. What is that? The primary objective. Formulating means through the process of learning. Formulating objectives are nothing but through the process of learning. What are the objectives that one should realize and one should actually design and set the objectives. So what is that? To enable the learners to read and access information, write for the academic, write the examinations, right? Write examinations and then academic purposes, should be able to understand, read the textbook, assessments, write the assessment, project works and reports, etc., etc. So they should be able to write all these things. And then these are the formative objectives through the process of learning. Use language for functional purposes also. Yeah, and the other one is the functional purposes. So like exchange greetings and exchange greetings. For example, seek and seek information, give information, and then general purposes. That is various general purposes. Okay, so that is one more thing. And then functional purposes is also like writing writing applications, letters, notices, functional purposes. Sorry, this one is like functional purposes is, you know, writing applications, news reports, understanding the public notices. All these things comes under the functional purposes. That these are the objectives. So a person who is going through or enrolled in a course, or like, you know, or in a category of in a class, in a at a level, okay, at a standard, in a standard in the sense like, you know, sixth class or seventh class, what is the level, right? So that is, those are the levels of the learner. So in those levels, these are the what is expected from them. That is how we have to understand this one. So I'll just and then access libraries, online. These are the formative objectives. So while they are through the process of learning, these are the objectives that they need to achieve. And then deal with the official operations, oral and written also. And then one more objective that we have is curricular objectives. What is this curricular objectives? Any course of instruction begins with a set of objectives. Bloom's taxonomy of educational objectives is a reference point in the pedagogical circle. Bloom defines 6 levels of learning objectives. So this is one. He has set 6 levels of learning objectives. What is that? They are knowledge, comprehension, application, analysis, synthesis, and evaluation. So these are the objectives one has to realize. One has to to achieve through a course of when they are pursuing the course, or when they are in an educational instructional setting. So this is how the learning goals and the learning objectives, teaching and learning objectives, teaching objectives. So this is one more thing. That is how language teaching objectives. So when we teach somebody, and then through the curricular objectives, these are the things that they need to achieve: knowledge, comprehension, application, analysis, synthesis, and evaluation. So guys, actually, I think this is the time to wind up, I believe. So thank you guys for having me. And then next class, we'll see what. Thank you. Thanks a lot. See you guys.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yes.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah, thank you, guys.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, guys. Bye. See you. I'm leaving the meeting. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Bye, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
I don't understand.